Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Good evening and welcome to another round of the AOR Hype Energy F1 season, and we are here for round 3 of the calendar for the Chinese Grand Prix, live from the Shanghai International Circuit. I am Gaming Alimonda, and you can call me Mark, and alongside me, making his return along with myself, is the great Ali K. Good evening to you, Ali K, and what are your impressions as we enter the third round of the season?
Yes, good evening, everybody. It is good to be back, and I have to say, China is one of my favourite tracks to watch league racing at. It is just an amazing track for overtaking and the strategy as well. There are so many variables. I would expect this season to have just as good a race as last season, and as well as that, the added dynamic of can anybody challenge the Renaults, who have been dominant thus far.
Yeah, so we arrive at this 5.4 kilometre circuit, which features 2 DRS zones and 16 corners, and in particular, Ali, the hairpin down at turn 12, we'll be seeing plenty of overtaking action down there, won't we?
Yeah, it is a fantastic overtaking opportunity. That straight is unbelievably long, so if you can't overtake there, then you're going to be struggling to overtake anywhere, I think.
Yes, a kilometre long straight, and well, one of the characteristics of this circuit, Ali, is the fact that you have the technical sector 1 and sector 2, but then you have to leave yourself not with too much downforce, otherwise you'll be so vulnerable on that straight between turns 12 and 13, which will be the main overtaking area on this particular track.
Yeah, it is a really pretty challenging track. If you think about turns 1, 2, and 3, that is an incredibly challenging sequence of corners. It's almost unlike anything we see anywhere else on the calendar. And as you say, it is quite a mix of technical, slow corners and then the high-speed stuff mixed with a massive straight as well. So this track really does have a bit of everything.
Yes, and as the drivers go out on their warm-up laps for this 18-minute qualifying session, which will be followed by 28 laps of this splendid circuit. We've been racing here since 2004 in Formula 1. The popular Brazilian Rubens Barrichello winning here in 2004, first race held here at the Shanghai International Circuit. So, as Ali mentioned, we had 2 dominant performances from the Renault team to start the season. So Dominic Hoffman leads the championship with maximum 50 points, with a 17-point advantage to his teammate Jan Opera. Lucas had a brilliant race in Bahrain last week, finishing second, closing the gap to Jarno. So he's on 28 points, and then the champion from last season, Michael Ancher, on 27 points, not winning either of the first 2 races, which was in contrast to last season. Then Stay Frosty making up the top 5. And in terms of the Constructors Championship, well, as we mentioned, Renault, a dominant start. Look at that 47-point gap to the Williams team. The Williams pairing of Michael and Roy, we really expected to be dominating this season, but it hasn't worked out that way so far. And I'm just seeing, Ali, you've left the session, I think.
I am working on that one.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we'll get into the business of this qualifying session. A warm welcome to everybody who has joined the chat already. Hope to see you. Making plenty of comments and predictions. Give us your predictions for the pole position and top 3 for this particular race, as we have just over 40 minutes of session to go, and hopefully Ali will be able to rejoin the session, although he's still with me in the Discord chat. So then, going through here is Lee Finley, who had a pretty impressive showing last week, a P5, his best result so far in Tier 1 of PS4, and I think he surprised a few people, don't you think, Ali?
I think a couple of the debutants actually have surprised a few people, with Stay Frosty up in, I think it's P5 in the championship, which is a very, very strong performance, a strong opening 2 rounds from someone who is completely new to the league. And I think Lee Finley's P5 in Bahrain as well. He didn't get the points in Australia, but that's a very, very strong result. And he's mixing it with Michael, who was, of course, last season's champion, which is some pretty lofty company, and he held his own very, very well. And I look forward to seeing what he can do for the rest of the season.
Well, heading into the final turn, it's Schnitzel across the line. It's going to be an early set at 1:41.32 on the medium compound tyre. So as we mentioned earlier, the 3 tyre compounds being the Ultra Soft Softs and medium compounds. Now, Pirelli tell me that based on previous race data, the Ultra Softs will be very much a qualifying tyre, but won't really be used for you know, a good strategy during the race in terms of getting a one-stop done. So do you expect, Ali, to see mostly soft tyres being used during this qualifying session, given that we now know it's going to be a dry race?
Yeah, you really would expect pretty much everybody to be on the softs. We're expecting the fastest times on the softs to be around the 1:30 mark, maybe just dipping into the 1:29s if somebody absolutely nails that, but that is asking an awful lot. But yeah, this track really does eat rear tyres. So if you go on the ultra softs, which are 2 steps softer than the middle compound tyre, you really are going to be struggling in the race.
Yes, and quite a few of the drivers are actually not opting to come out on track yet. The likes of Roy and Stay Frosty just coming out on their out laps, but the reigning champion Michael has certainly, and that is a fastest lap early on the race on the medium compound. So Tough Max over 1:31.826. I expect once they go on the softs, they'll be going probably at least, I would say, towards, you know, the low 31s, but we shall see what happens there. So as it's a slight lull in the session at the moment, because I think a lot of them are either doing sort of just almost formation laps with these ultra soft tyres, not really taking it seriously at the moment. Ali, just talk briefly about, you know, a race which I think everyone should go back and look at from last season. The Chinese Grand Prix last season here was absolutely sensational.
I think that is probably still to this day the best league race I have ever watched on any game ever. It was just unreal watching it. And if you remember back to what happened, we had a dry race all the way through, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, it started torrentially raining in the last few laps. A couple of cars took the gamble to go on intermediates, and, well, a couple of them didn't. One of them being VGIA Michael, who stayed out on a set of dry compound tyres in wet conditions, and he only got caught at the hairpin, turn 14, on the very last lap of the race, at which point Curly took his first and only victory, I believe, in this league, due to getting his penalty removed after the race, and I don't think we'll ever see anything quite match that race for unparalleled drama.
It certainly was. I had to jog memory because obviously we have so many races, it's hard to remember them all, but after you mentioned it earlier when we were talking before the race, I did have a quick look at those final few laps on my phone, and yes, it all came back to me how dramatic that race was. If we get anything half as good as that, we're in for a treat today, ladies and gentlemen. So the early pace, Ali, a 1:31.041 from Schnitzel on those medium compound tyres. So we're going to be going quite a bit faster when they switch to softs, aren't we?
Yeah, an awful lot faster, I'd imagine. This is just cycle laps, filling time really on the medium tyres before everyone goes out on the softs. That's the kind of interesting caveat to these qualifying sessions, where you don't want to be qualifying on the softer compound tyre, is that you only get one set of the middle compound, which means realistically you only get one run and one, maybe 2 laps at a push. So you really have to make the most of the time that you are on that compound tyre. For the rest of the 18 minutes in the qualifying session, there's not a huge amount to do, which is why you see people rolling around on the mediums, just trying to get used to the track conditions and whatnot.
Right, well, we're going to go on board with Michael, and if Ali, you can just take us for a lap around the Shanghai International Circuit, as we have no hot lap available this week, so it's you on the spot doing it.
So here we go then, on board with our reigning champion Michael into turn 1 on the medium compound tyres, probably struggling an awful lot with trying to get temperature into them. They are incredibly hard to heat up, really. So through turns 1, 2 and 3 is looking a little bit understeer. He's got a bit of traffic with that Ferrari on the right-hand side as well, getting the power down nicely, and then on the run down into turn 6. I think this is one of the trickiest braking zones on the entire Honda. For whatever reason, the camber of the corner or whatever it is just makes it incredibly difficult not to lock up and to get anywhere near the apex. It's deceptively hard, that corner. And through the sweepers of turns 7 and 8, he's slightly wide as Michael there. And again, I think that's probably a consequence of him being on those medium compound tyres. This is probably the most interesting section of the entire track. Very fast and flowing. You get the double apex left, which is slightly out of place almost with those fast flowing corners. And then you have this little tricky chicane before you go through that really, really long right-hander, which is just begging you to put the power down, but you've got to be very careful, you've got to be patient, you can't risk getting any oversteer, otherwise you're going to compromise your run down this kilometre-long back straight. And he's actually coming up behind his teammate here, and he'll get a very helpful slipstream, even though he's on the medium compound tyres, which is interesting. I thought it's a bit of a waste almost to do slipstream on the medium compound tyres, but still, each team has got their own little plans, and this is what the Williams team are doing. And Michael very nicely on the brakes into the turn 14 hairpin, and then up to the final corner. The lap has looked fairly good so far. Well, as good as any lap on the medium compound tyres are going to look. Through the final corner and up to the line, what is it going to be for Michael? And he goes P4, just behind his teammate.
Yeah, P3 and 4 for Williams on these early laps here, so that's pretty decent. So thank you, Ali, for taking to our lap. And Schnitzel then going a bit fast on the mediums, and they're doing simple laps, aren't they? 3 laps on the mediums, and he's just on a 1:38.51. Well, it'll be pretty difficult for him if he ends up invalidating his laps later on the softs, because then he'll have to start on that compound, of course. if he finishes in the top 10.
Yeah, that is a fair few laps on the medium compound tyres. Still shows, though, they don't lose any performance early on in the stint, but you would certainly not want to be starting the race on 4-lap-old mediums, that is for sure. So I imagine everybody will be out on the softs before the end of this session.
Well, we see the Force India of Tough Max here at the moment. Force India have had a difficult start to the season. Only the bottom of the Constructors, only 1 point so far for the Force India team, so they'll be looking for better things today. And it looks as though Tough is going to be the first runner to give us an idea of what the pace of the softs are. So, you know, you expect them, you know, if the lap is hooked up to be at least a second faster than the equivalent medium time. So we'll just keep an eye on Tough's progress as he goes through the 3 sectors here at this track. So at the moment, your top 10 is Schnitzel, Demon, Roy, Hugo, Jarno, Nico, Michael, Casper, Stay Frosty, Alex, and all of their best laps have been on the medium compound. But we're about to get quite a grandstand finish for this qualifying session, because there's going to be a lot of drivers waiting for the last few minutes and then coming out on that soft compound. But do you think any of the drivers might be tempted perhaps to do a glory run on the ultra softs and take a sneaky pole position, even if strategically, Ali, it's not going to do them much good in the race?
I mean, all it's going to get you really is a bit of airtime for your sponsors on your car, and not much more than that. If you qualify on the Ultra Soft, you are almost throwing your race away before it's even started. It's almost like, yeah, it's just going to completely destroy your race strategically before you even get going, which I don't think any one of these drivers could condone, and I would imagine everybody would be staying well clear of those Ultra Softs.
Just having a look at the sector times of Max, and his previous best was a 1:31.826 on the medium compound. So if you could just have a look at his sector times for Tough Max and just see, you know, is he going significantly faster on the softs at the moment, or is he, you know, invalidated already?
He's done a 24.1 first sector and a 27.3 middle, which is significantly faster in both of those sectors than he was on his corresponding medium compound lap time, but I am not sure this is going to be challenging the absolute top times that we'll be seeing later on in the session. It's actually very early to be going out on the softs. I'm slightly surprised to see him out this early on the tyre that I'm sure he intends to qualify on. Yes,
because you only actually get one set of the soft compound, I believe, on the faster one. So it's a 1:38.17. So it's not much faster, is it, than Schnitzel's best time on the medium. So that just shows you the pace of some of the top runners in this league.
Yeah, I think rather than the Force India being slow, I think that is just testament to the pace of that runner. That is an incredible lap time on the medium compound tyres. Also, something else to note, though, is the pace of those two McLarens. You would have expected coming into the season that CRGA Demon would be a fair old way off VGI Lucas, seeing as Demon's been promoted from F3, but that hasn't been the case at all so far in this session.
Yeah, now there is actually one driver out there on the Ultra Softs, and as he goes massively wide towards the end of Sector 2, and that is one of the Toro Rossos, VGIA Alvaro Aznar, I should say, as he goes through the DRS detection zone, heads onto the straight turn 12, a very important corner, Ali, isn't it? Because it's a corner which, you know, if you get your angle slightly wrong, you're not able to take it flat, and then you're so vulnerable to the car behind in a battle.
Yeah, and it really is going to hurt you all the way down this straight. It's such an important corner, and it can cost you huge amounts of time, especially in qualifying when every 10th of a second counts. If you have a bad exit out of that corner, it's going to hurt you all the way down that enormous back straight.
Yeah, I think he was just getting a feel quite late. But at the moment he doesn't have any time to his name, so let's move on then. So at the moment, Tough Max top of the standings, 1:38.17, but I think that's about to get absolutely smashed by the likes of Jarno. Jarno's actually still on the medium, so he's still out there testing, and he's pushing it for time a little bit, isn't he, to get back to the pits and get an outlap done, isn't he? He's only got just over 4 minutes of the session to go.
He is indeed cutting things a little bit fine, considering his teammate is already out on the soft compound tyres. He really has got to rush back to the pits fairly quickly, but I imagine he's probably got everything under control.
Well, if we had Ted Kravitz available, unfortunately we can't afford his wages. Sky apparently can't for most of the races either. He would be telling us that most of the teams are fitting the soft compounds, and that's indeed what is happening. So it's going to be a lot of drivers. And, you know, as we saw in the real Chinese Grand Prix, traffic was quite a problem for some of the drivers towards the end of the session. I wonder, Ali, if it will be the same here, if they're all bunching up at the hairpin trying to get some space.
Well, yeah, we would be expecting everybody to be out at the same time, really, to make the most of the track conditions while they are at their best. And as you say, at the end of the track, it's a very, very slow sequence of corners, and you can get very, very messy with people jostling for position, as we saw in real life. I think our drivers, to be honest, tend to be a bit better behaved than those in real life, but we'll have to wait and see. There's that unwritten code, unwritten rule debate about whether you should overtake people into the final corner before they start their quali lap, but I don't know. We'll see how people approach this. I imagine, though, we'll probably be all right.
Yes, I think so. We're just on board with one half of the McLaren team. It's fair to say Demon's had a difficult start to life in the top tier, but he's in the top 5 at the moment. I think that would be by far his best qualifying result if he can get that. He's got quite a bit of traffic ahead of him. Other drivers on their soft runs. So Demon is one of the first lead cars in the top 5 at the moment on this soft run, so we'll see what he can do. Just going to see who else is out there at the moment. Looks like Schnitzel's on the lap, Jarno as well. Actually, no, Jarno's back in the pits, actually. I think we mentioned he should be able to get back out in time to do a lap. It's not the longest lap here. It's about 90 seconds here for this particular lap for a fast run. Schnitzel going through sector 1, struggling a little bit for rear traction, the championship leader. Carries on there. She probably didn't lose too much time because of that. We go straight back to Demon actually, just to see how he's doing, because he's on the main straight now. Going to be interested to see what he can do. I think the 130.817 is about to be beaten. And actually, Ali, I've noticed the current pole sitter, 130.817 for Top Max, he's actually gone for the Ultra Softs with 2 minutes to go. It looks like he may be going for that glory run.
That is a very, very bold call indeed. But if he's done a 30.8 on the softs, you would imagine he will absolutely batter that time on the ultras, which have a huge performance advantage over all the other tyres. But is it going to mean anything for the race? Probably not. He'll probably be a moving roadblock after 2 or 3 laps. But Schnitzel is just coming to the end of his lap in the Renault, the man who's won the opening 2 races of this season. And again, this lap is looking very, very tidy.
Yes, and interestingly, Demon backed off from his lap, and he's gone over the line very slowly, so he seems to be happy with his medium time at the moment. Here comes Schnitzel then, heading for the line. What's it going to be? I would expect this is going to be a better time to Tom Max. He crosses the line, and it is. It's a 1:27.739, 1 second faster than the current best. And say Frosty goes into second, but he's nearly 7/10 off, so that is a blistering time from Schnitzel.
That is an absolutely unreal lap. I did not expect anybody to get anywhere near that far into the 29s. That is just unreal. A 1:29.7. I think he is well and truly safe at the top of the timesheets with that one.
Well, there's one driver who might be able to beat it. He was quite a qualifying specialist last season, and that is VGIA Lucas. So we will see what he can do. Nico's gone up to P3. The other drivers out there. What about the reigning champions? Lucas is about to start, so we'll see where Michael is. Heading towards, yeah, he's in the middle of sector 2. If you just look at Michael's times, is he anywhere near what Schnitzel's done at the moment? He's 1.5 seconds off, of course. That time was on the mediums.
Let's have a look at what Michael is doing. Oh, he's slightly faster than he was on those mediums. It's not actually as big a gain as I thought it was going to be. He's about 6/10 up on what his medium lap time was. He is getting slipstream though from his teammate, and that is really going to help him into turn 14. He's got a huge amount of traffic in front of him though. Sean is weaving all over the place in the braking zone for the hairpin, which has got to be so off-putting, but he's held it together. Let's see what lap time is going to be.
Yeah, well, he got a tow and Hugo retired from the session, so he's in P11 for the time being. Here comes Michael then, aiming for the line. What's it going to be? It's only P3, so he's behind Casper, and he's not going to have another lap to go. I think Roy is in the pits as well, so it's a disappointing session for Roy once again in qualifying to have to come from the back like he did at Bahrain. And Casper has moved up to P2. Now, let's get on to Lucas, because Lucas, I'd say realistically, along with Jarno, probably one of 2 drivers who can challenge Schnitzel's time based on what we've seen so far this season. Lucas is on the back straight, heading down towards the hairpin at turn 13. You have to look out for the marker boards on the left-hand side and get it all the way down through the gears as quickly as possible to get the car slowed down on the engine braking, all the way down to first gear briefly. Demon's retired in P12. So let's see what Lucas can do as he heads through the final corner, trying to take as much speed through as he can. He heads for the line. And what's it going to be for Lucas? It is still nearly 4/10 off. It's in P2. So Lucas doing what he has to do to at least give the Renault something to think about. Jarno then, I think Ali's probably the only other driver who can get near Schnitzel's time. But that time from Schnitzel looks like one of the best qualifying laps we've seen in the recent history of AOR Tier 1.
Yeah, that pace is, I think, still likely to go unmatched. Let's see, though, if Jarno can join him on the front row. He's one of the last people to finish their laps. His teammate has just retired from the session. Something else to note, though, a very strong performance from Casper up in P3. We were not expecting to see him up there, but let's see what Jarno can do up to the line. That is P2. It is a Renault front row lockout, and, well, that is just exactly to form, isn't it?
Well, Alan Prost in the pit lane nods his head in approval. It's looking like another Renault masterclass, at least in qualifying. They look as though they have locked out the front rows. No, Michael is on an in-lap So that is it for your qualifying session. It's the Renault team once again. Last season, their drivers only managed to get a handful of points. This season, they're looking like the team to beat once again. But Schnitzel, where's this pace? Oh, there's a collision between two cars on the Alap. I don't know if that will affect the game at all for them. But Schnitzel, you know, we know he's quick. He had a handful of races last season, won one of them. But, you know, since he's come back, where's this pace come from, Ali?
Well, I think at times he showed us just how fast he was last season, but he wasn't able to produce that consistently over what was an unbelievably long season. I think, to be honest, the shorter season might be treating him a little bit better. He just got into a bit of a rut, a bit of bad form last season, and that just completely destroyed his confidence, I think, for the rest of the season. But he seems to have come back a new man, unrecognizable from the driver we saw last season, and he is absolutely demolishing everybody thus far with unbelievable pace, both in qualifying and in the race. And at the moment, that Renault team looks untouchable.
Yeah, strategically, they're on the best tyre to start, really, the soft. It's a simple one-stop here, you know, soft tyres to at least around lap 10, and then mediums to the rest of the race. And it's going to be a cloudy, dry race, apparently, or is that going to be more smog, given the city there nearby, one of China's financial centres? So your qualifying result then for the Chinese Grand Prix. It's a Renault 1-2, Schnitzel ahead of Jarno by nearly 0.3 seconds. Then Lucas in P3, keeping them honest. And then Casper in P4, probably the star qualifying outside the top three. Reigning champion Michael in 5th. Nico in 6th. Lee Finley in 7th. Safe Rossi in 8th. Ruben in 9th. Kieski in 10th. And then making up the rest of the grid is Alex, Tough Max, Sean, Demon in P14. Williams Roy having another nightmare qualifying session. The runner-up from last season. Hugo, Davidos and Alvaro Aznar at the back of the grid, who did not sell a time. So free choice of tyres, of course, for those outside the top 10 as we wait for the lobby to load into the race. And, well, the headlines once again being set by the French team and the two drivers driving for it in Jarno and Schnitzel.
Yeah, and I think we probably could have predicted that one coming into the session. But a word on Casper as well. That is a fantastic qualifying lap from him, promoted from F2 last season. And I'd say he settled in pretty well so far. That has definitely been the highlight of his performances so far. And I look forward to seeing what he can do in the race and whether he really can take the fight to those top guys. It's difficult to say because their pace just seems to be on another level. But who knows? China is known for producing crazy results.
Yeah, well, it's a very, very misty day above the Shanghai International Circuit at the moment. And, well, can Lucas take the fight to the Renault boys, as he did at Bahrain last week, splitting them in the end, although Schnitzel comfortably winning as the pace of Lucas faded towards the end of the race. As did Jarno, of course. Schnitzel's pace was so consistent throughout the race. As we get on the formation lap, now let's have a quick look at the tyre choices that they have gone for outside the top 10. Softs for everybody in the top 10, of course, the tyres they qualified on. So outside the top 10, it's actually a fair mix. We've got 3 soft runners in Alex, Sean and Hugo, and the rest of them on the medium compound. So the mediums take a few laps to warm up, fresh, as you know, Ali. So, you know, the likes of Roy and Demon may struggle a little bit for a first few laps, but then as the softs wear off, they may come back into their own later, and then, of course, they'll have the better tyre in their second stint.
That is certainly going to be the case. And something else to note though as well is Roy is outside the top 10 yet again. That was his fatal flaw last season when he was fighting for the championship, and it seems to have carried over tenfold almost into this one. He's been outside the top 10, I believe, in every single qualifying session we've had thus far, which just, if you're trying to fight for a title again, that's just not good enough. Yes, you can come through the field, but it just compromises you so much and puts you at risk constantly from being hit in the midfield, which is always a chaotic experience every single race.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think his championship bid was really hit by some of those poor qualifying performances. He was very consistent in his race performances, but in terms of his qualifying performances, that was a bit of a fatal flaw of his, and he doesn't seem to have sorted that out still. So a brief reminder then of the championship standings. Dominic Hoffman, aka Schnitzel, on 50 points after taking victories at Australia, Bahrain this season, and he's in the best position to make it 3 out of 3, which would just be a startling performance given the quality that you have in this tier. And then his teammate Jarno on 33 points and Lucas on 28 points. So very neatly, the top 3 in the championship are also the top 3 on the grid for this particular race. So Casper, he'll be looking for what would be, if he finished in 4th, his best result of the season. He started with 2 7th place positions. And here we go then, the grid building up for the race. So it's going to be quite a wait. It seems to be quite a spread out field here as Schnitzel takes his slot on the front row of the grids. It's quite a long distance to turn 1, 267 meters from the start line to what is a very tricky turn 1. Can be quite a huge Constantine effect. Hopefully everyone gets through without any damage as they all pile in there. So then at the back of the grids, Davidos and Alvaro finally getting going, and we're going to be underway very shortly here for the Chinese Grand Prix, round 3 of the Tier 1 AOR PS4 season. So I get a decent camera angle, and here we go then. 5 red lights, and we are underway in China. Here we go then. Both Renaults getting away well, but it looks like Lucas actually got through the gears slightly better, and he's going to challenge, or at least try to challenge one of the Renaults. And the Renaults go side by side through turn 1, and actually Jarno squeezing his teammate to the outside. And look at that, Lucas is going to slip down the inside of 1 and then try and get the outside for 2 and 3 and trying to take lead of this race. But Schnitzel, the championship leader, is down to P3 already, and Casper has been overtaken by Michael behind. And here we go, Lucas and Jarno side by side into the end of sector 1. Has it been a clean start down the order alley so far?
It looks fairly clean, but the two Renaults tangled with each other into turn 1, and it cost them both in the end, with Lucas going from P3 to P1. What a start from the McLaren driver, and the two Renaults only have themselves to blame.
Yes, absolutely. Well, they sort of fought each other a little bit too hard, and that's cost them, but there's a long way to go in this one. We're only on halfway through the first lap, and actually, Ali, being the first car onto the main straight may not actually be the best place to be, given how powerful the tow is here.
Yeah, it could cause them some problems. That gap is only just under 0.4 of a second as well, so Lucas is certainly going to be vulnerable here. We'll see what kind of wings Jarno is running, though. He looks a little bit too far back to make a move on this lap, at least, without the DRS. In fact, his teammate might be closer.
And this is one of my favourite camera shots in the entire game. You get to see the entire field on the back straight, and Lucas actually had pretty decent straight line speed. Jarno unable to threaten him at the moment. Schnitzel actually, if anything, looks a little bit closer as they snake into the hairpin and then go out through the final corner, and it looks like there's more action, and Nico has overtaken Casper as well. So Casper has fallen down to P6 with his teammate Lee Finney just behind him. One of the Ferraris, I think Sean, going off track in the background, and there seems to be some pit stops at the back of the grid. I think unfortunately the Red Bull Doridos has got damage, so that's a wing change for him as the Renaults now slowly try and claw their way back to the McLaren. But there is the reigning champion Michael keeping a watching brief for those two, because he finished 4th, but he was well off the pace of the top 3 last week. He really needs to have a race this week where he's a bit closer. Otherwise, that championship he won last season, he won't be able to defend it if he can't get into the top 3 on a regular basis.
Lucas and Michael certainly have to start making some inroads on those two Renaults if they want to have any impact on this championship before it gets too late. And Lucas at the moment is perfectly placed to do just that. What a start from McLaren. A couple of other drivers have very good starts down the order as well. Williams Jim Roy went from 15th to 13th, so he's slowly started his charge through the field, with Sean and Alex also moving up as well. So Alex currently occupying the final points paying position.
Yes, let's just have a quick look at Jan as he goes through turn 12. He's not actually getting a particularly good exit. If anything, Jarno's getting ahead of him. Schnitzel is actually a little bit closer to his teammate, but the tow that Jarno will get will neutralise that effect. And Schnitzel probably won't be able to go for a move on his teammate just yet. DRS will be activated at the end of this particular lap. It's pretty gloomy above the circuit still, so no sign of higher track temperatures if the sun breaks through. So for the time being, high temp shouldn't be an issue. Should be fairly cool for them at the moment. So here we go then to start the 3rd lap here, and the DRS will be activated. Jarno slightly closer. The gap's sort of just 0.6 of a second, and behind them, Alex is having a little look at the Ferrari of Sean. They're going side by side in turn 1. Let's just have a quick look at them. And Alex is, I think he was defending actually from Sean possibly, but either way he has dropped down to P11. And actually there's another car right alongside him. It's the Force India of Kiski, who defends nicely using all that experience, and Roy trying to regain some places. We'll just stick with them for a few more moments, see if Roy can gain any places. Will he go for a dive into the end of sector 1? Yes, he does. Down the inside goes the championship runner-up from last season, and one half of the Constructors Champions, of course. And he has passed Kiski up to P12 he goes. So a decent start from Williams Jim Roy so far, but he still has so much work to do to get some good points. But we're going to switch our attention to the battle for the lead, because now DRS is activated, Ali. We could see some overtaking action about to happen here.
This could certainly get very interesting very, very quickly. Jarno, though, is probably at this point still slightly too far back. He doesn't quite seem to have the pace of his teammate. Of course, they have reverse positions from qualifying. They are swapped round in the order that they were. So you would imagine that Schnitzel, if he can translate his qualifying pace into race pace, is certainly going to be a little bit faster in the race. But at the moment, they're the other way round from that.
Yeah, the DRS activating for both Renault drivers, not able to get that close to him. We'll go down the order though, because Schnitzel almost piling into the back of his teammate, but got the car slowed down, thankfully. And then Hugo looks like he's challenging position here. He's gone very deep and he's not going to get the move done, and Kieske with a move like that, or Willie. They're going to go side by side with turn 16. It's the battle for P13, and actually squeezes the Force India off, so actually pretty decent move in the end from that particular driver. We'll go straight back to the top ring. Let's just wait a few more moments, see if anything happens. Getting the best camera angles at the moment. Here we go then. Hugo for P13 battling the Force India of Kieske. It's not for points, but certainly plenty of battle of pride. Demon in P15. We'll have a look at the winners and losers shortly from the grid so far. So the top 11 all on the soft compounds. So Roy, the highest medium runner at the moment, in P12. So let's have a look at the front, because it is getting very close. Jarno starting to get on the pace a little bit. Ali, he's now within half a second of Lucas and getting closer than he has done on the previous laps.
Yeah, he's certainly closed up an awful lot on this lap, and I would imagine if he can together the next few corners, he could well be having a look into turn 14. He hasn't quite been close enough on the last few laps, but if he can maximise his exit here, down this enormous straight, he should surely be close enough with the slipstream, with the DRS, to at least have a look into turn 14. And actually, it's now his teammate's turn to fall a little bit further back.
Yes, Schnitzel actually had a pretty poor exit. He got sort of compromised by Jarno going a little bit deep into the corner, and that may make him vulnerable to Michael behind. Here comes Jarno. Would he go for a move? Let's go straight to Michael. So Michael's having a look at Schnitzel behind for P3. Watch out for Nico in the Mercedes just behind. But no, Schnitzel had the better traction out of the corner, was able to maintain the position, but that poor exit that Schnitzel had just before the DRS detection zone nearly cost him. And now Jarno trying to make a move on Lucas, who's gamely holding on to lead, but when you don't have DRS here, it's so difficult to hold the cars back behind, because they'll be running similar setups. But it seems like Lucas has plenty of straight line speed, which probably explains his lack of pace in sector 1 and 2, but gives him all the important defense qualities he needs to maintain that lead of the race, as we just saw, because Jarno wasn't able to drag him down the straight even with DRS, Ali.
Jarno and Michael have suddenly woken up in this race. They both did very, very lively down the back straight, and like they could be the ones on the move and looking to try and gain a couple of positions. Schnitzel really has to try and get his pace back. He needs to stay right on the back of his teammate to protect from the cars behind, otherwise he's going to find himself vulnerable very quickly. And likewise for Jarno, he needs to be close to that McLaren in front of him if he wants to stand a chance of staying in front of those cars behind him, because otherwise he's just way too vulnerable down that enormous back straight.
Well, Schnitzel is the odd one out here from the top 4. This is 3 of the top 4 from last season's championship in this battle for the lead. And Lucas drifting a little bit wide out of turn 12. I don't know if that will make him a bit more vulnerable. I think Jarno looks a little bit closer as we go on board with him, and he's got him like a sniper in his sights. Will he go for a move down the inside of the hairpin? We're about to find out. Schnitzel, his teammate, would be a good view from it here. Jarno has half a look, trying to distract Lucas, make him go deep into the hairpin, but Lucas, he's experienced enough not to fall for that particular diving and dodging from Jarno behind. So your particular top 3 is maintained, but Michael is right there in this. It looks like, Ali, he's got much better pace this week than he did at Bahrain last week.
It certainly does. Michael is a changed man from last week, it seems, and he's looking to make some inroads in that championship, which he desperately needs to do to stop these guys from disappearing away before it gets too late, really. With only a 10-race season, you can't afford to fall that far behind, because you don't have that many races to make up the points. But down that back straight, something to note actually is that Jarno backed out of that. He turned down his ERS completely, turned his battery off before the braking zone, so he was not willing to take that risk of going for a move from even slightly far back on Lucas. Well, I think he can smell a race victory here and knows that he doesn't need to take any risks and risk throwing anything away at this early stage.
We're only on lap 6 now, Ellie, but I feel that some of these drivers will be starting to think about maybe making an earlier stop. It's quite a close packed grid. P18 Davidos is way off, but in terms of traffic, if they make the early stop and attempt the undercut, traffic shouldn't be an issue for them.
Yeah, they should be all right. I think the only problem with the undercut is that mediums take a little while to heat up. So if you go for the undercut, you have to absolutely nail your outlap on the mediums. Otherwise, you could find yourself losing time to an overcut rather than gaining any time, which is quite a big risk to take. But it's certainly an interesting dilemma at this point in the race, and particularly with the overcast conditions and potentially lower track temperature as well.
Just having a look at Michael, because he got pretty close to Schnitzel out of turn 12, but couldn't quite get to it. And oh, Schnitzel. He's got it slightly wrong there. He slightly tapped his teammate, locked up the front tyres, and I think he got away without damage, but that off-balanced Jarno a little bit. But the Renault team got lucky away with that. There may be some team radio saying, okay, just calm it a little bit. And meanwhile, behind, Michael's had an awful final sector, and here comes Nico. Nico's just overtaken Michael from P4, so Michael must have sort of been caught up in that sort of Renault business a little bit and got compromised in the final sector. Well, that's a shocker, isn't it, Ali?
Michael actually got damage from that. He hit the back of Schnitzel, who careered into his teammate. That was a bizarre instance. Schnitzel just completely forgot where he was braking, and unfortunately for Michael, he's an unfortunate bystander, and he gets caught up in an incident that had absolutely nothing to do with him, and that's really, really going to hurt his race. That is so unlucky that he had no time to react, really. That was just incredibly unfortunate for the Williams driver.
He's missing end plate on the right side, I believe, part of it anyway, and that's going to hurt him so much, particularly in the fast part of sector 2. And that's the reason why Casper is right on the back of him now. So unfortunately for Michael, the reigning champion, it could be about to get much worse for him. But we're going to switch to the top 3 for a second, because they are as close as we've seen them in the race so far as they go onto the main straight for the 7th time.
Both of the Renaults here could be looking to make a move. I think Jarno half a second back. He's really pretty close to Lucas. They have about equal battery to use, so it should be pretty fair into turn 14. But again, Jarno completely turns down his ERS and backs out of that one. But I think these two Haas cars could certainly be on the move very shortly. Yeah,
Michael having to go defensive to the inside, and he's forced Casper to the outside, but the better traction of that Casper gets on the throttle, brilliantly done actually, and that's going to put him up to P5. So Michael, unfortunately, looks like he's going to drop a few more places before it's all said and done, but he's going to try and come back at Casper. Casper not getting the best exit, and actually Michael is going to brave it out to the inside, and he's going to retake, at least momentarily, he's going to take back 5th position, but Casper will have the inside for turn 2. And Casper takes it. Watch out for Lee Finley, the other Haas. Oh, they bang wheels. Michael is getting bullied a little bit out there through no fault of his own. And now they're going to go side by side into the end of sector 1. Michael will have the inside, and hopefully if he can get on the brakes, he should be able to maintain his position. But no, Lee Finley's still going to be there. It's a bit Ricciardo and Vettel from a few years ago, as they went side by side through the sector 2, and the other Haas is passed. So the Haas car's running 5th and 6th at the moment. It's a pretty good race for them at the moment, but Michael, surely when he pits, he's going to have to get his wing replaced, because he's losing far too much time, Ali.
He is. He's losing huge amounts of time, and you really do have to feel for him, and he seems to have almost lost his head slightly, defending incredibly aggressively from both of those Haas cars and taking needless risks, really. He's got to remember he has wing damage, it's now damage limitation. Don't take any more risks, otherwise he's going to really throw his race down the drain. The two Renaults, though, again, it's still slightly too far back from Lucas to be able to make a move, which is quite surprising, actually, considering how long they've been sat in the slipstream in the DRS.
Yeah, well, I guess it helps with their tyres that they're not making lunges down. They're trying to stretch out the stint. Schnitzel has a bit of a problem in terms of his battery management. He's got much less battery than Jarno and Lucas at the moment, so he's going to have to save a little bit. It's got less than a quarter of his battery left. He's trying to just maintain the pace. So actually, race pace wise, Lucas and Jarno maybe have a little bit in hand on Schnitzel at the moment.
They might well do, as Michael comes into the pits finally. At long last, I think he's made the decision he cannot stick it out there without a front wing any longer. He was really hurting his race, and I think that front wing change as well is really going to hurt his race in the long term. He's just lost so much time, and again, that was incredibly unlucky. That was barely anything to do with him, really. He got caught up in someone else's scrap, which is a huge shame, really.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that can happen at that hairpin, because they all brake at the same time. They all concertina into there, and if you're a little bit too close to the car in front and they brake a little bit earlier than you expected, that's what can happen. And Michael, the unfortunate victim of that, and that's going to seriously compromise his race. But we do know that Michael has pretty good tyre wear normally in terms of his racing, so he should be able to go to the end from there, although he won't have much performance at the end because he's had to pit slightly earlier than he would have planned otherwise. Oh, and again, Jarno locking the tyres, and Schnitzel once again, just not anticipating it, nearly slamming into the back of his teammate. That's going to allow Lucas to scamper away just a little bit, but he can't break that 1 second. Between similar pace drivers here, Ali, it is very difficult to break the DRS for the lead car.
It really is, but these two Renaults are looking increasingly ominous. If you look at how much gaining, I think Schnitzel here might be going for a move. Let's see if they hit each other again. They just about managed to avoid doing that again. That would have been an absolute disaster if they ploughed into one another again in this race, but they just about managed to keep it clean. And the positions have stayed exactly the same since lap 1. Nobody's been able to drop anybody or make any moves on anyone. So I imagine we'll probably be seeing some tactical pit stops that could make a big difference in this race as Nico comes in, and he was well in the equation with these guys.
Yeah, Nico pits then. He was in P4. He was fending off Casper in the battle for 4th, but he's making an early pit stop. With Michael's wing problems, he should come out ahead of him, so he'll have some clear road at least for a few laps. If he can get those tyres up the walls, he might be able to get onto the back of the top 3 by the time they pit, although I feel these drivers are probably going to be pitting soon. Now, the one thing we have to consider, Ali, is the fact that the two Renaults are right next to each other, so Jarno will get the first call in terms of making the pit stop, won't he, if he stays ahead?
And that could be huge. That, given how close it is, that could be the deciding factor as to who wins this race. So whoever gets to the pits first is going to have a huge impact on the outcome of this race. You would imagine Schnitzel's either going to have to go 1 lap before or 1 lap after his ideal pit stop window. So which one of them he goes for is certainly going to be interesting to see. It's a bit of it's a hard decision to make, really.
Yeah, and well, Schnitzel actually going down a few lower gears than you would expect in terms of turn 12, just making some adjustments mid-corner, which means he's not going to be able to challenge in terms of DRS from this particular lap. So it's going to be interesting to see. I feel like if Jarno doesn't pit now, I think Schnitzel's going to have to, because otherwise he could end up doing 2 extra laps rather than 1. So let's see what happens. Lucas pits. And no, neither Renault pits. Now that's surprising. So Lucas will pit, so he'll get the advantage of the undercut, but that's assuming he can get those mediums up to pace, which, as Ali mentioned earlier, can be tricky to do because they take a while to get up to temperature. So the Renault's tactically deciding to go for the overcut and try and maintain the performance of that softs for a little while longer and try and leapfrog Lucas once they make their pit stops.
That is a very, very bold call from both of those Renault cars, considering they are so close together. They really cannot afford to battle. Jarno's going to be incredibly vulnerable down the back straight, and I think both of them are going to end up losing time to Lucas even more if they battle, with Michael on those fresh medium tyres set personal best in the first and middle sectors, and you can see he's now just set the fastest lap of the race. So the mediums are getting up to temperature much quicker than we expected and are very fast at this point in the race.
Yes, that is surprising, but Michael setting the fastest lap of the race. We're just on board with Sean in the battle for P5 at the moment. Hugo doing a decent job of holding off. Quite a lot of pit stops have happened now. Lucas has actually got out 3.3 seconds ahead of Nico, so Nico wasn't able to really eat into them that much in terms of the undercut. So here we go then, back to the two Renaults, and Schnitzel, well, really struggling for rear traction out turn 12, and I don't think he's going to be able to challenge Jarno right here unless he's got so much more overspeed, but we're about to find out. And, well, surely, Ali, one of the Renaults is going to be peeling off with pits now, because they've got to respond to Lucas, at least one of them.
Jarno's certainly got a pit here. You can see Schnitzel so late on the brakes, but he really seems to be struggling with traction. Out of the corner leading onto that back straight, he was just so slow, he couldn't match his teammate whatsoever. And Jarno actually stays out. That's a big, big call, considering he's losing time hand over fist to the medium runners, and Schnitzel, out of nowhere, gets the first call for the pit stop. That's a very strange decision.
Well, maybe championship leader privileges. Maybe that's what's going on there. But Lucas is just rounding the final corner. It's going to be very interesting to see where he comes out. He's only just getting service, and he actually got held up slightly by one of the Hasses coming, Casper. So I think Lucas will maintain the lead here, but it may be a bit closer than we expected. Goes into lead. Actually, no, is it going to be just over a second? So if Lucas can get out of the DRS right now, that could be really crucial for the race. Schnitzel comes out then in P2. Now we've got to see what Jarno does. Will he respond? I mean, we're told there's not going to be any rain, so I don't think he's staying out long on purpose.
It looks like it's raining, though. On board with Schnitzel, it looks like there is rain on the car. There is some rain arriving at the circuit, which is a huge surprise.
Well, I can't see any yet. But
okay.
Oh no, you're right. I see some spots of rain. Well, we weren't. Perhaps the weather forecast people from the league were lying to us. But yes, there is rain on the circuit. And if this rain falls quickly, this could be huge for the likes of Jarno. And of course, will Williams, Jim Roy as well, and those who haven't pitted. So this is very, very interesting. We did not expect this. And actually, we have to mention, Roy, he's actually just about to go past Lee Finley in the battle for third, which will be a superb recovery. And gets squeezed to the inside, but braves it out to the inside, brakes, and actually that's a really nice overtake there. Should get the traction of the racing line on the outside there, and yes, that's job done. And he's actually in a way on the best tyre at the moment, and more drivers are pitting. So Jarno is going to carry on. He is going to carry on to the likes of Lucas and Schnitzel. Lucas is actually 1.7 seconds ahead now of Schnitzel, who's broken the DRS thanks to that undercut. But unfortunately for him, if this rain falls at a tremendous rate, this could really be advantage Opma. But to be honest, Jarno's not going to be having that much life left in these soft tyres. So if this rain doesn't fall quickly, then it's going to be advantage medium runners. And in terms of who those are, Ali, in terms of those who haven't stopped, it is Roy, Demon and Max Till who haven't pitted yet.
I think the medium runners really are looking pretty set in this race. I am not convinced though by Jarno's decision. This rain doesn't seem to be falling very heavily at all. I don't think it is going to fall that heavily at all. I'm not entirely sure we're even going to get intermediates at any point in this race. So Jarno's taking an enormous risk here by staying out on the softs, which are nearing the end of their life anyway. And I think he's committed to a strategy that isn't going to work, really. He's taking a huge risk, and I really cannot see this one paying off. I think, though, on the other hand, Roy and Demon really are pretty set on those medium compound tyres. If the rain does fall down, they're going to escape without having to do an extra pit stop, which is perfect for them.
Yeah, well, Roy in particular has the flexibility that even if it doesn't rain hard, he's still going to be on a decent strategy and he'll have the better tyres at the end of the race. So, in a way, he's sitting pretty. He doesn't have sort of, in Jarno's case, he's got to think about pitting now or carrying on it, and he finally pits. But what's he going to pit for? We'll find out momentarily, and it's going to be Williams. Jim Roy had an awful qualifying session. He's going to take the net lead of the race, and if it falls hard now, he's got a massive lead.
Jarno's got to go for medium compound tyres. There's no way you go for stage. The track is nowhere near wet enough for intermediate compound tyres, and yeah, it is mediums, as you would expect, because, well, as I said, actually, that strategy hasn't paid off at all. He's stayed out too many laps, and he's lost huge amounts of time to both Lucas and Schnitzel.
Massive amount of time. In fact, Nico may get him as well. He's coming out now on very cold medium tyres, and Nico may fancy a go at this. He's going to try and squeeze to the inside of one, and then try and get him on 2 and 3. Oh, Nico will get round the outside. Look at that. That's the advantage of warmer traction. And something's happened to Michael. Something's happened to Michael down the order. What's happened to him? Michael's had an off somewhere. He's just dropped down to P16, so it's a nightmare race for the rain champion at the moment. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Ali. The fact that Jarno stayed out so long, it's cost him massively. He's now, well, in terms of the net positions, he's nearly 5 seconds behind Lucas.
Yeah, that's proved to be incredibly costly. I said at the time, that is just not a strategy you can commit to when you have no idea how heavily the rain's going to come. Going for a couple of laps now, and we haven't slowed down at all. Everyone's still setting fastest laps, and the grip doesn't seem to be even remotely reduced. But on the topic of Michael, I have no idea what happened to him. I went back to look at his point of view, and he seems to just be driving around normally now. So whatever has happened, he's got back up to speed now and appears to be driving around normally. But yeah, the race goes from bad to worse for him.
Yeah, it may have been just a spin somewhere. Jarno trying to recover the position from Nico, and he's definitely going to go for it now. He has to. Goes for a dive to the inside. Nico braking very late himself, but I think Jarno's going to get this move done. Will they be side by side in the final corner? No, Jarno edges ahead and yeah, slots in front of him. So that's a good move from Jarno. But Nico's going to come back at him straight away. And watch out for the 14th behind him. And something else, it looks like Lee Finley's had some sort of incident. We're going to stick on this battle for a moment. Just check Lee Finley, see what happened to him. He's just dropped all the way down to P16.
Yeah, there's some kind of coming together of the hairpin with a couple of cars involved. Pits as well. So yeah, cars coming through traffic in these conditions on these tyres really isn't going very well at all, with a lot of incidents happening as Michael works his way back up into P13. But it really is all kicking off. I don't think anybody expected this rain whatsoever, and it really isn't falling very hard whatsoever. So it's just there to be annoying, but not enough to call for intermediate tyres. So it's a very interesting 50-50 situation here. You cannot pit for inters at this point at all. But Schnitzel has now got himself into the DRS range of Lucas, so it's not over for the lead of the net lead of this race just yet.
No, not at the moment. Lucas is actually closing in on the first of those who haven't pitted, and that's Tough Max on 14 laps on the mediums. We're just sticking with the battle for P6, 7 and 8 at the moment because this is your closest on-track action. Schnitzel is closing on Lucas, so we will focus on that momentarily, but let's see if Casper can do anything about Nico. They had a little battle early on in the race where Nico got ahead of him on the opening lap. As Kieski picks up time penalty. Don't need too many time penalties so far here. It's not really a track you would typically get too many time penalties, to be fair, so I wouldn't expect to see too many around the Shanghai International Circuit. On lap 16, this race has roared by so far. There's been some great action so far, very close. And, well, who knows, this race could end up being as dramatic as the last one we saw last season. If this rain keeps falling, it will certainly make it treacherous when on these older tyres later, Ali.
Yeah, it certainly will. These track conditions really have created an incredibly enthralling race for us here. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. This rain was not forecast whatsoever, so nobody knows whether it's going to stay like this for the rest of the race or it's going to get wet enough for inters at some point down the line, which will certainly make things interesting and will definitely play into the hands of those of Demon, Roy and Max, really. But again, Max is under a lot of pressure from Lucas, or will be very shortly. But in these conditions, Schnitzel's pace seems to be unparalleled by anyone else. He seems to be by far the fastest car on track and is currently all over the back of that McLaren.
Yes, it seems like when he was behind Jan and Lucas, he was getting really badly affected by the air coming off their car because he was just really struggling at times to get the car slowed down. But now he's only got one target like this. We may get a free wide action momentarily because clearly Lucas and Schnitzel are far quicker than Max's older mediums at the moment. So this is a crucial moment for Lucas. He can't waste any time getting past this horse in. He's got to get it done now because if he doesn't, he may be falling victim. And you just see Jan in the background, nearly 4 seconds behind, but you may think what might have been, Ali, if this rain doesn't fall over. And here comes Lucas. He's going to go for a move to the inside and actually doesn't actually get it done, at least for the time being. Schnitzel's got to try and follow through. But look at Tough, he's going to slot right in front of the Renault actually, and he pits finally. So that won't affect Schnitzel too much, and Lucas will probably be slightly frustrated that the Force India didn't stay out slightly longer, just to attempt to give him some breathing room.
That was actually quite a scary moment on board with Schnitzel, with the Force India slamming on its brakes directly in front of the Renault before heading into the pit lane. That could have ended much, much worse than it did in the end, but I think Schnitzel is still well within DRS range of Lucas and could well be having a look. While DRS is still enabled, given the conditions on either this lap or the next one, he seems to have so much more pace in that McLaren, and if he's not affected too badly by the dirty air, I would expect to see him move into what is the actual lead of this race now. Yeah,
so Roy has pitted. Just going to see where he's actually come out in a few moments, and he's actually come out in P7 on the soft compound tyres, so I'll tell you what, he's got half a chance of getting a podium, unless of course it continues to rain when they all come in, then that will probably compromise that attempt. But now the story is everyone has pitted, and now the battle for the lead is joined. And it's Lucas versus Schnitzel, kind of a repeat of what we saw at Bahrain last week. But as these two battle, if Lucas can hold up Schnitzel for a few laps at least, that may give Jarno a chance to make amends for his strategic mistake that he made earlier, Ali.
The rain actually now looks slightly heavier. If you go on board with one of the cars, it looks like it's a bit heavier than it was earlier in the race. It's definitely going to be having a look at Lucas into the hairpin, surely.
He actually put the power down there, Ali, and I think he was just trying to force Lucas into going deep. But again, you know, Lucas, actually his battery's management not quite as good as it was earlier in the race, having to do so much more defending. And all of that has allowed Jarno to gain a few more attempts. He's now under 3.5 seconds behind the top three. And meanwhile behind them, P4, Casper, just there with Nico and Stay Frosty, and Williams Jim Roy though will soon be on the back of those three, unless of course the rain gets harder. So at the moment it is a battle between the McLaren of Lucas and the two Renaults of Schnitzel and Jarno as we enter the 18th lap here of the Shanghai International Circuit, and it is finally poised for quite a grandstand finish, isn't it?
10 laps left and literally anything could happen at this point. I think this battle for the lead is far from over, and I think it could well be a three-way battle for the lead before long, with Jarno's pace, which looks pretty solid at this point. Just other notable things throughout the field, Casper, very, very strong drive from him up in P4, and it's a very strong result, or would have been a very strong result for the Haas team as a pair, but Leif Bindley had that incident of the hairpin and now finds himself down in P13. Michael as well, marooned well outside the points. Demon has actually pitted for the softs and come out ahead of Michael. That's testament to how much time the Williams driver has lost during this race. That is very, very unlucky for him.
Yeah, Demon's one of 7 drivers in the league who haven't scored a point yet, but he's got a fair chance of getting some points if the rain stays like this. So catching up to Ruben. But, you know, the medium runners, they'll have the best performance in these sort of conditions right now, because the temperatures will be a bit lower. Schnitzel again puts the power down. Oh no, he goes for a lunge to the inside. Schnitzel puts it down the inside, goes slightly deep. Can Lucas come back at him? They're going to be side by side almost into the final corner, so it was sort of a half dummy move from Schnitzel, and it's worked out, and he takes the lead of the Chinese Grand Prix.
What a move from the Renault driver, and that is how you win so many races. He is into pole position to maintain his 100% winning record so far this season, and that after 3 races would be quite an incredible feat to achieve. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the league so far, but well, it's far from a foregone conclusion at this point. Lucas is still all over the back of him, and Jarno is getting ever closer in that other Renault.
Yes, and for Lucas now, it's crucial that he stays within DRS range, because we did see early in the race he had really good straight line speed, so if he can get a shot at Schnitzel, he may be able to slingshot past him, at least on the outside. So Schnitzel may still have some defending to do, but as you mentioned earlier, Ali, since these conditions have gone mixed like this, Schnitzel seems to have crazy pace, and he's nearly 7/10 already up the road from Lucas, so Lucas on the ropes a little bit in terms of fighting for this race victory at the moment.
Schnitzel has just been on another level so far this season. I think that lap we saw in qualifying is testament to that, and the way he's driven the race so far is also testament to that. He's just been by far the fastest guy. He was getting so frustrated sat behind Lucas and Jarno, and I think his frustration showed with that minor incident we saw between the 2 Renaults. And that was the kind of thing that was costing him last season before he ultimately decided to leave the league midway through the season. That was the kind of incident that was giving him wing damage or just causing him problems and preventing him from showing how fast he actually was. But he got away with it, and on this occasion he looks like he's going to make full use of the fortune that's come his way, and he looks set to at least have a shot at winning this race, and he's yet to pick up a time penalty either, which is another one of his known flaws as a driver.
Yeah, so at the moment your top 10, Schnitzel, Lucas, Jarno, Casper, Nico, Frosty, Roy, Hugo, Sean and Ruben. And in terms of those in the top 10, Williams, Sim, Roy flying the flag for Claire Williams at the moment, and on those soft compound tyres, making moves surely coming up. And 4th place may be the best he can manage, but that would be a brilliant recovery from P15 for Roy as it stands, and we'll be watching his battles very soon. I was surprised actually Frosty couldn't get any closer to Nico, but Casper not able to break the DRS, so the battle for 4th looks like it's going to go on and on to the end of the race. So just take a brief breather as Schnitzel slowly but surely gets away. He's nearly 0.8 of a second ahead now of Lucas. If he can break out that DRS, then I think that will be game over in terms of the battle for the lead in this particular event here. And now William Stimroy is now right on the back. Just going to see if Lucas can get any closer to Schnitzel. He just can't. Doesn't seem to have the out and out grip he had earlier. Are you still there, Ali?
I am. I was having some issues, but now I'm back. And yeah, I do agree. Lucas falls out of DRS range of Schnitzel. It's going to be curtains for his chances of winning this race. Schnitzel seems to be so fast that Lucas has just got to hang with him and hope that his tyres go off towards the end of the race, or we end up having to pit for inters. Although, again, it looks like the rain isn't getting any heavier, and we're still going to stick with dries between now and the end of the race, which is just going to make things a little interesting. It would certainly be more interesting if they had to pit for inters, but it's just, I don't know, adding that little extra element, that extra variable, because these drivers will not have practiced in these conditions.
No, you're absolutely right there. So Nico's been overtaken by Steve Frosty, but he's now trying to come back, and Roy trying to grab those 2 places. He's got the better tyres at the moment. He's going to have to bide his time. As Steve Frosty has been re-overtaken by Nico, so a nice move into turn 1 by Nico, the opening section of the lap. And look at the traction Roy's got, and he's going to slingshot past Steve Frosty. And is he going to try and get 2 moves in 100 meters? Here we go, down the inside of Nico, and Roy has done it. He's got the better traction. Here comes Steve Frosty just behind. He's going to try and go for a move round the outside at turn 8, but no, he thinks better of it. That would have been a pretty suicidal move in these conditions, but brave of him to even think about doing it. So Roy up to 5th. And I think he's probably got a bit too much of a gap to get to Jarno for the podium, but this has been a pretty decent recovery drive from Roy, hasn't it?
Fantastic couple of moves from Roy. They're very opportunistic, and he made the most of the opportunity when they came his way. He really is making the most of those soft compound tyres. And yeah, it's been a very impressive recovery drive from where we found him in qualifying. But as you say, I think the podium's slightly too far out of reach. You can certainly smell a top 4 with that just being just under a second in front of him. But A podium is probably slightly too far out of reach at this point. And just a note on Jarno as well, he hasn't closed that gap at all.
Yeah, I'm on board with Stay Frosty at the moment. I have to admit, the rain seems to be getting ever harder, isn't it? Is it going to be hard enough to force these drivers into intermediate conditions by the end of the race, or at least be absolutely struggling? 3-second time penalty for Alves, who's way off the order. Here comes Stay Frosty trying to make a move down the inside, try and end this battle, which has raged for so many laps now. The P6, as Roy closes in onto the back of Casper, and Stay Frosty gets into position. And now, here comes Roy, runs really wide in the dirty air of the Haas ahead. Can he dive down the inside here? What about Nico? Nico will think about moves to the inside of Stay Frosty. No, thinks better of it. But I'm sure that battle's going to carry on. So at the moment, the reigning champion Michael down in P13 behind Lee Finley, just really having a race to forget really for the reigning champion. And he'll be fortunate in his mind they'll have 7 races to make amends for it, but given the start that the Renault drivers have made, and Lucas, it's a long way back for him in terms of his title defence, so he's going to have to pull off something really special to claw back those points, because at the moment, Ali, he's not scoring any.
Indeed, and Michael's season up until this point is really yet to get going, which 3 races in is certainly a bit of a concern. And as we're talking about Michael's misfortunes, he picks up a 3-second time penalty as well, just to compile his misery really. It's not going to make any difference because he's well outside the points, but a bad afternoon gets even worse for the Williams driver, as the other Williams is flying the flag pretty well up in P4 as he moves past Casper into turn 14.
Yeah, and he locks up both tyres, but gets the move done. But again, you see the way he's spinning the wheels up. Seems like there's less grip out there, and actually Lucas is still within DRS range of Schnitzel, so it only takes one mistake with Schnitzel in these tricky mixed conditions and Lucas will be in again, because I believe I'm right, Ali, in saying that none of the top 3 have any penalties at the moment.
I believe you are correct. I haven't seen anything, and I would imagine particularly at this track you wouldn't be seeing anyone with any penalties. Schnitzel only has 1 warning. Lucas similarly has 2 warnings actually rather than just the 1, and Jarno, he picked up 2 warnings on the opening lap interestingly, but hasn't got any since, so all the top 3 are void of any penalties up until this point.
We are entering the closing stages of this Chinese Grand Prix now, AOR Tier 1 on PS4, and well, the story is a familiar one in terms of what we saw last week at Bahrain. The top 3 comfortably, Schnitzel, Lucas and Jarno Ottmar. The Renault team once again putting on a storm performance, with Schnitzel on the verge of a 3rd win from 3 races, which is just a spectacular start to the season. And given the short 10 race season we have, that could be something which, if Jarno has 1 bad race and Schnitzel keeps winning, he could be wrapping this up pretty early. But there's still 7 races to go after this one, and there's still plenty of laps left here to go. But in terms of impressive performances, 11 places gained for Jim Roy from his P15, so surely a contender for driver of the day. 8 places gained for Hugh Golf, that's pretty impressive. He's on course for his first points of the season. In fact, there's several drivers who haven't scored points this season who are on course for their first points of the season. So in terms of the battle for the lead though, Ali, Lucas is still hanging in there, still in the DRS range. He's just hoping, praying for some sort of mistake from Schnitzel.
He's just about hanging in there, but that gap is not getting any smaller really, and he's got to be much closer than he is if he wants to have any hope of making a move. And well, you can just see Schnitzel's domination of the championship is getting ever larger, and Jarno, who will, if it finishes like this, have had 3 consecutive podiums to start the season. Normally you would say that's an incredible start, but he could still find himself 27 points off the championship lead, which would be quite an incredible statistic, and just shows you just how dominant Schnitzel has been. 3 wins from 3 would be just unreal.
Well, the gap is now just over half a second, so Lucas has had a pretty good lap here so far, and he is gaining time on Schnitzel. But what has really hurt Lucas in these mixed conditions has been the exit of turn 12. He's got really close in these opening 2 sectors, but then he just kind of fades away, and that was another example of that. Back end kicking out a little bit, and now it's nearly a second again. So Lucas has got to try and get on the power, at least to match Schnitzel, to give him just a little bit of hope. As Nico picks up a time penalty down in P7 at the moment, going to give Hugh Golf another place. So drivers in 8th, 9th and 10th haven't scored points yet, but they're on course to score them, although Demon I saw picking up a time penalty, so that may cost him the final championship point, which would be a real shame for him because he had some difficult times in the first 2 races, so a point would be well deserved. I think he's driven quite well today. So Lucas again with the DRS, it's around half to 8 tenths of a second. isn't able to get into that sort of kill zone to sort of get the overtake done. And Jarno is now 1.8 seconds behind. He's been gradually clawing it in. He may be within DRS range of Lucas before the end of this race, because Lucas, the pace of the top two seems to be slightly slower than Jarno at the moment.
Yeah, Jarno has suddenly woken up out of nowhere, Rick. Finally found some pace, which we've been waiting for this entire second stint of the race, really. He's closed that gap between him and his teammate is now 2.6 seconds, and you can see visibly from Jarno's point of view, he is definitely closing on those top two. So if he can keep this pace going, and if the top two battle at all between now and the end of the race, he could certainly find himself with a sniff of a race victory, which I'm sure would be a very welcome sight for the man who currently sits P2 in the championship. But he's running out of lap pretty quickly here. Lap 25 of 28, he's not going to have many opportunities left.
No, and he may have to rely on a mistake from Lucas to get ahead of him, because Lucas will have to turb Schnitzel at the very least if he stays within that 1 second. The DRS, of course, as well. But he's now 1.6 seconds, so it's a bit of a lull at the moment, but it's only going to take one mistake from any of the top three, and that will decide where they finish in this particular race. That's how critical this moment in the race is. So Stay Frosty is actually now on the back of Casper and has broken away from Nico, so that battle is finally over. So the battle for P5 may be about to develop in the closing laps, and Sean has been behind Hugh Gold from the battle for P8 for some time now, but hasn't been able to get past him. Demon is right there with them. And in P11, Ruben and Lee Finley having a decent battle. Oh, and Schnitzel goes really deep into the hairpin. And Ali, this allows Lucas to get right onto the back of him again.
That's cost him a huge amount of time, and I think he could well be under threat into turn one. That gap is getting ever closer. It's 0.4 of a second now, the closest it has ever been in this final stint of the race. But Lucas still is not quite close enough. He's got to nail this lap, though. This is his chance to get past down the back straight. If he can stay this close, he's certainly going to have an opportunity into the hairpin.
Yeah, Schnitzel's got to refocus, because that was a big mistake in these conditions. The medium tyres, of course, starting to wear off a little bit. They've been on them for some time now, although Schnitzel actually has a slight advantage in that respect. He's done 14, Jarno's done 12, which might be critical in the final lap, because he's now right there. Jarno's got to really push like mad now to try and get as close to the top two as he can, but he's actually dropped 2 seconds behind. Yeah, he's had a pretty poor sector one there, nearly 2 seconds off the lead now. At the worst possible time, he needed the pace there. But Schnitzel, I think, has had a decent job of it in sector 2, and he's now over half a second ahead again. So Schnitzel can't afford too many more mistakes like that, Ali, otherwise he will get overtaken.
And that was a very poor middle sector from Lucas. If he'd have nailed that sector, then he could have had an opportunity.
Schnitzel's gone deep again. Schnitzel's gone deep again, and he is right on him now. He's in that proverbial kill zone. He's just got to nail turn 12 and get onto the power, get into the slipstream as quick as possible. Schnitzel, the back end, sliding all over the place. Same for Lucas, the lead of the race, going into the final 3 laps. And look at that, Schnitzel going very defensive, cutting off the inside. Here comes Lucas. It's going to go to the outside. Side by side they go into the hairpin. Can Lucas get the switch back? He's going to attempt it. He's on the power slightly better than Schnitzel, but Schnitzel cuts him off. Brilliant defending from the Renault driver. This is going to allow Jarno surely, and he's gone wide. Schnitzel has gone wide, and here comes Lucas. Side by side they go, and Lucas takes the lead of the race once again, and he'll have DRS, so he'll be able to get into sector 1 in the lead of the race. Can Schnitzel come back in front of him? A series of mistakes from Schnitzel in these sort of slippery mixed conditions, and that has changed the outcome of this race for the time being.
What a move from Lucas. That was absolutely fantastic drive. Schnitzel has looked so comfortable this entire race, and then suddenly in the space of about a lap and a half it all falls apart, and now he finds himself on the penultimate lap of this race having to make an overtake for the lead of this race. This is incredible, and Jarno is almost within DRS range of his teammate as well. This is going to be very, very interesting heading into the last lap and a half.
Yeah, and Schnitzel and Lucas lost so much time battling just, and if Jarno had not had such a poor lap the previous lap, at the same time that was about to happen, he would have been right on them, and as it is, he's still outside of DRS range. Now Lucas is going to have to defend for his life, as Schnitzel has got to refocus, but these conditions are so treacherous. It's only going to take a slight bit of miscalculation for either driver, and Jarno will gobble this up, and he is now almost tantalisingly out of DRS range. It's a different kind of drama to what we saw last season, but the battle for the lead has raged from lap 1 at least, and we thought Jarno's strategy may have potentially cost him, but here comes Schnitzel. Can he go for a move down the inside? He's not quite close enough. He doesn't have much battery either, to be honest, and neither of them do actually. So Jarno will have the fresher tyres as we enter the final lap of this race.
Schnitzel has got to be very tactical here. He's got to nail this final lap and set it up for the final time we go through turn 14. He has got one opportunity left to try and make this move for the lead work, and now Jarno is within DRS range as well, as the two leaders are so close together going into turns 1 and 2.
Lucas goes really wide, but he'll have the inside to cover, so as long as he doesn't go too deep into the corner, does a little bit, but Schnitzel unable to take advantage. Schnitzel getting all out of shape out of turn 3. Will that allow Jarno to get a little bit closer? No, not quite enough. And well, this has all been happening. If only Roy had an extra couple of laps, because he's within 2 seconds of the top 3 now, but I think he's going to run out of laps, unfortunately, unless something unbelievable happens. But if any of the top 3 get a penalty, Roy could still get onto the podium, and even finishing P4, he's probably my nomination for Driver of the Day. But enough of that for now, because the top 3 are all within a second of each other. Once again, sensational action in the top tier of AOR on PS4. And here we go into the end of Sector 2. Schnitzel has got to nail this. He's got to absolutely nail turn 11. Don't go too deep, and then get onto the power for turn 12. But Lucas actually looking pretty good on the throttle, keeping a nice narrow line out there. Oh, gets a bit out of shape, but gets it straight in the end. So Schnitzel, it's all or nothing, full attack. Is it going to be a last minute lunge? Lucas goes defensive, doesn't feel the need to go full defensive yet. I don't think Schnitzel's going to be close enough for a move. Oh my goodness, so close. Jarno is right there as well. He's going to run out of laps. It's going to be Lucas then, who takes the final corner ahead of the 2 Renaults, and he is going to win the Chinese Grand Prix with an incredible performance from Lucas ahead of the 2 Renaults. What a race. Absolutely brilliant action there.
What a fantastic race, and what a fantastic drive from Lucas. That was managed to perfection. We thought he was out of it. The second that Schnitzel overtook him, it looked like he had more pace and was going to drive away from McLaren, but he brought it back, stayed within DRS, and then overtook him with just a few laps to go with an unbelievable move, and then held his nerve on the final lap as well. I think Schnitzel cost himself there. He lost the back end horribly out of turns 1, 2 and 3, and that, I think, was enough to put him too far back to go for a move on Lucas into turn 14. If he hadn't done that, he might well have been close enough, and he will certainly be cursing his luck there.
Yeah, well, Lucas, when he was overtaken by Schnitzel only a few laps before the final sort of decisive battle, he so nearly fell out of DRS. He was really up against it, but he came back so strongly. Impressive mental strength from Lucas there to actually get out ahead, and Schnitzel gets past him and raises a hand in congratulations. But once again, it's been a great result for Renault. So Roy finishing 4th in the end, Casper in 5th, save the 2 Saubers having a pretty decent race, 6th and 7th, Lee Finley in P8, and Demon picking up his first points in the season along with Sean. So much improved performance for Demon, and Lucas will be pretty delighted with his teammates' performance. We'll confirm the final results. We're just going to enjoy Lucas celebrating what is a magnificent victory, and what once again another unbelievable race here at the Shanghai International Circuit. If only the real races at Shanghai were as exciting as this one.
Well, at least in the virtual world, the Chinese Grand Prix never fails to deliver. Still, though, even though we don't have a Renault on the top step of the podium, they have both been on the podium every single race we've had so far. But Lucas gets himself back into contention in the title fight. It's still early days, but he's not allowed those 2 Renaults to get too far away from him. Schnitzel will still be in the lead of the championship, but not by as much as he would have been otherwise. And Lucas is definitely applying the pressure just a little bit more now.
Yeah, well, here is your provisional result for the Chinese Grand Prix of AOR Tier 1 on PS4. Lucas taking the victory by just 0.3 of a second, and Schnitzel in 2nd, and Jarno in 3rd. Another double podium for Renault, their 3rd from 3 races. William Stimroy 15th to 4th, surely the driver of the day. Casper in 5th. Stay Frosty in 6th. Hugh Golf 16th to 7th, a very decent day's work for Sauber in 7th. Lee Finley in 8th, more points for him. Demon in 9th and Sean in 10th. So lots of first-time point scorers today, which is always good to see. And outside the top 10, we have Nico, Ruben, Kiski, the reigning champion Michael, all the way down in P14, Tuffin, Max and Faye, and then Alex and Davidos. And only one retirement in this particular race, and that was Alvaro Anzar. So, wow. Ali, we had a classic race last season, and in a different way, that was just as good.
It really was. We had a sustained battle for the lead the entire way through, which is always entertaining to see. I think both Renaults actually will think that they could well have won that race. At the end of the race, the top three was separated by a mere 0.6 of a second, which is just unreal. What an incredible ending to that race. But yeah, I think both of those Renaults are definitely going to be kicking themselves. They didn't pick up a victory there. They definitely both could have done exactly that.
Well, I guess the only other thoughts to say, well, Renault have had 3 double podiums to start the season. It's something we didn't expect, but their pace, they've really laid down a marker, and they're going to be the team to beat at least. But Lucas has really shown today, though, that he can take the fight in the Drivers' Championship to both those drivers.
He certainly has. That performance was absolutely impeccable. He didn't put a foot wrong the entire race. Kept his cool when it looked like things weren't going his way. Had an amazing start. Worked his strategy very well. Couldn't ask for any more.
And in terms of those outside of the podium winners, who really impressed you out there today in terms of the top 10?
I would say Demon probably picking up his first points of the season. That's always a good thing to do, to get it out the way, just to get out that fear of finishing up the season without any points. That's not a nice thing to have hanging over you. And he drove pretty well today, considering he started outside the top 10, which is, yeah, having a good race performance is something that he wasn't always known for when he was last in the top tier of AOR. But strong performances throughout the field, actually. We had this the Saubers with a strong performance, with Stay Frosty building on his strong start to the season, and Hugo as well picking up his first points of the season.
Well, next week, Ali, we go to the Red Bull Ring for the first European race of the season, and given its characteristics, a very short, fast and furious track, it's going to be quite a spectacular race, I'm sure, again, don't you think?
Well, Austria last season as well was pretty incredible to watch, so you'd be crazy if you missed it.
Right, well, that's it for Ali and myself. Well, what a race that was. Absolutely brilliant action once again, but the Renaults proving once again they are the team to beat. But it is Lucas who takes the victory here at the Shanghai International Circuit. Thanks for watching, and see you next time on Apex Online Racing. Goodbye.